Okay, yeah. Hi, everyone. Woo, it's been a long time. Hope everybody is good. All True Northers, all supporters of True themselves, your families. I hope you've been keeping well. And of course, to just everybody else in this country right now. Not that I hope you're keeping well, but I hope that with what is going on and what is going on with you specifically, you have all the support that you need. So I'm going to talk about three issues today that have to do with the legal literacy of military veterans. If we what we are doing, what we need to do, and basically um, where it is that I wanted to do this video much earlier, and then of course the events um, from the 16th, and I've been feeling like I don't want to. How can I put it? I don't know who is that walking in between my revolution sort of situation. Been looking for an appropriate time to be able to have this talk, presentation, conversation, whichever way you want to put it. And I guess today it's going to be a combination of the three things I'm talking about: the Official Secrets Act, I'm talking about the military veterans, and I'll be talking about SHIF. Okay, those three things. Uh, this is the most appropriate time to talk about this because, of course, SHIF has been sort of put in the 15 days. It's not a permanent thing. And then, of course, we are all aware of the Military Veterans Act that was passed in 2022. And it is 2024, and nothing is going on, right? So that's why we are talking about that. We are talking about the Official Secrets Act because there are many questions about what is it I can't talk about, to what extent. I guess people are just getting to realize that any service to them. So this is a live thing. If I'm not able to go through all the three things that I want to talk about today, so just be aware about that. So once again, I want to talk about the Official Secrets Act, Cap 187, the Military Veterans Act for 2022, and of course for 2023. And the purposes of talking about this, like I said, Tracy, so my ability to pass information to you that I guarantee you will not get anywhere else. I can even bet on it, right? So to pass this information to you so that you need to take any action that you choose to. And of course, the second reason that I am here today talking to new veterans is also to make a call to action, right? Make a call to action. So, in the general sense, can begin by saying that military veterans, just like other citizens of our, entitled to freedom of expression set out under Article 33 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, which affords every person the right to seek, receive, or impart information and ideas. The constitutional right is, however, limited. Now that's where us guys come in, right? Remember when in active service you fell under the Kenya Defence Forces Act, but you no longer fall under the Defence Forces Act. And you remember during your terminal leave, you signed, amongst many other things, the Official Secrets Act. People don't read the Official Secrets Act. You just sign it because you just want to be done and gone, and you're like, who would anyway? So we shall be able to talk about the Official Secrets Act, which of course is an act of parliament which imposes particular obligations relating to state secret so as to protect the safety and the interests of the Republic of Kenya. I do not doubt that every veteran has a vested interest in that. Like that, in like, there's no doubt in my mind that every veteran, it is important to them to protect the safety and interests of this Republic of Kenya. Like, I don't even doubt it second. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the Official Secrets Act. Okay. So it makes it an offense for any person, including a military veteran, that form, right? To reveal any secrets, code words, or information that may compromise the security and the in of the Republic. Okay. Doing so is a criminal offense punishable by imprisonment for a period of up to 10 or 14 years, depending on the offense. These legal provisions are a limitation on freedom of expression provided under Article 33 of the Constitution. Care must therefore be taken by military veterans to ensure that they do not divulge any sensitive information, both in their daily affairs and this next part is going to blow your mind a bit, and in the context of counseling. Mm. And in the context of counseling. You know what that means? It means that if it is in the context of counseling, then your therapist needs to also be bound by the Official Secrets Act. How do you like that? Guess who is bound by the Official Secrets Act? And I'm not saying it's me, but show me somebody else who is. Uh, so you'll see why this is important as we continue to the reason why we should care about the Official Secrets Act, the Military Veterans Act, and SHIF. Okay, I think now your curiosity is piqued enough, because at the end of the day, one of the few things that are so useful for any veteran to be able to just move forward, especially if you have um, basically, psychologically war-related wounds, or if you just have wounds by virtue of the job that we all know what it can take away from you, then you need to be able to be in a space where that is supported, but you're also a law abiding citizen. Let me tell you, this thing of life just asking so much of us, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. Okay. So that I wanted to make very clear, that it really has to do with anything that you might say that might actually compromise the interests of this country. And I don't even have to say a lot about that, because you know what that means. But I'm also saying that you can talk about that if the person you are in therapy with, who is your therapist, is bound by the same act. Okay. So that means, therefore, everything else that you want to be able to talk about, like right now, I know there's a lot of conversation about building a sort of a living library, living memory for people. Yeah, veterans have every right to want to be remembered, to have their remembrance that they have assembled as part of their legacy. Absolutely, right? But of course, everybody wants to be able to do this within the confines of the Official Secrets Act. So I think that's clear enough to everyone. So go on and do whatever you need to do within those confines. Okay. Now, let's come to the Military Veterans Act 2022. Guys, Chapter 199A of the Laws of Kenya. The National Assembly of Kenya enacted the Military Veterans Act in 2022, Chapter 199A of the Laws of Kenya, and that was in the year 2022. You remember, guys? It was June. I will never forget. I will never forget the day it was assented to. I will never forget the people attended the now announcement, right? Because I want you to think about that with everything else that I'm going to say, okay? So, an act of parliament to establish a regulatory and institutional framework for the management of military veterans affairs, for the provision of military veterans and veterans dependents to establish a dependents education fund and for connected purposes, right? And this act took effect on the 4th of July. That's what I meant when I said I wanted to be able to talk about this sooner, because I wanted to talk about it on the 2-year anniversary, you know? That's what I wanted to be able to do. I I really had a moment of being in the wilderness and really experiencing a state of disillusionment. It wasn't my first. I appreciate states of disillusionments, by the way, because they sort of get rid of the naivety and they bring a lot of clarity and really build on discernment. Because I was like, the way things piled up, the sequence of events, yeah, it was shocking. It was shocking. And I wrote an article in the Daily Nation because of my concerns about exactly how that happened. And it was a newspaper article for the Nation. It was an opinion, and I labeled it "Military Veterans Have Paid Enough: Our Old Restoration of Human Rights." I have pinned the link to that article on this on the description tab of this link of this video. So the link is in the description window of this video. You'll be able to see it. It says military veterans have paid enough and are owed restoration of human rights. And of course, I wrote that because considering how the events unfolded, I realized that the intention was actually not to ensure a smooth transition, reintegration, and continuation of life and livelihood for military veterans and our dependents. I don't enjoy this thing of saying, I told you so. But to be honest, when you see the clouds, you know what's coming, right? Um, so the early warning signs were already there, okay? And there's also a video I've linked that lays out that entire process. Again, in the description box of this video, you'll see the video there. And I think you should read it. I think you should watch it because I detail everything, to be honest. Like uh, I'm I'm pretty honest about what that process was. Okay. So let's continue on with the Military Veterans Act. And I want to familiarize everybody why this act is important. You know, I want to familiarize everybody to the contents of this particular act, right? Remember when True North began this process in 2017 and finally got something happening in 2019 and moving all the way up. What was the idea? The idea was that by law, the government would be able to provide care and protection for military veterans as is their duty, right? Without veterans having to feel neglected, be abandoned, or having to beg, right? That's the worst part. So the principal objectives of this act are to establish a regulatory and institutional framework for the management of military veterans affairs. And that means in totality. Like if it has anything to do with veterans, it is veterans affairs. You know, don't let anybody tell you that, oh, yes, this, but no to that, yet it actually involves veterans. Okay. B, a regulatory and institutional framework for the provision of benefits to military veterans and military veterans dependents. And C, a dependents educational fund. Okay, I'm having a bit of a running nose. I'm recovering from a terrible flu. Children are, I don't know, it's like their flu is potent. It's not like any other flu, right? So let's talk about Section 6 of the Act, which outlines more of the benefits, right? It provides that, one, subject to the provisions of this Act, the following benefits may be conferred on a military veteran. You know, that's the part for me that really, I'll be honest, makes me sad. The following benefits may. When you are doing your job serving this nation, protecting its interests, putting your life on the line, putting your sanity on the line, putting your body parts, you know, putting your future on the line, there was never a maybe. There was never a maybe when orders were given. There was never a maybe. And so now, when it's time to pay the piper, the following benefits may be conferred on military veterans. You guys tell me, am I off the chain here? Like, am I out of pocket? I mean, I know I'm not, but yeah. So, subject to the provisions of this act, the following benefits may be conferred on a military veteran. A, counseling and treatment for post-traumatic stress or related conditions. How are you guys doing with that? How are you guys doing with that? Kai! Ah, yeah. Physical rehabilitation for any condition arising out of military service. C, honoring and memorializing fallen military veterans. That has actually been a focus of interest given the the killing of protesters that has happened and how their families have been treated, how their bodies have been honored, and how the process of burying them and remembering them has happened. I don't know about you, but I am super, super, super jealous. If as a veteran or even like a widow or a child, your dad was in the service, they died, they were killed in action, and you see what's going on. How does it make you feel? How does it make you feel when for you their names were never even said in public? Well, someone is gonna tell me, well, not all of them, some were said. Under what conditions? Maybe give me a name. Say a name wherever you are. Say a name right now. Yeah, say it. Because at the end of the day, the majority of those whose names have not been uttered in public are more than the names of those who have their names have been uttered in public. And even those whose names have been uttered in public have been forgotten. The argument that the death of a soldier cannot consolidate national interests and raise national patriotism is only true for the person who does not want to give any accountability as to how those deaths came to pass. My nose is really running, but I'm not crying. I said today I'm not crying. I've been crying a lot the last few days, and my jealousy is intertwined with my sadness because I still to date believe that there are soldiers seriously who their names ought to be said, they ought to be remembered, they ought to be memorialized. They just should be remembered, but they're not. And nothing to do with national security, nothing to do with empowering the enemy. So you in uniform cannot have an opinion about how Kenyans are choosing. How Kenyans are choosing. Listen to me, listen to me. You cannot have an opinion about how Kenyans are choosing to honor those people they feel acted in the interests of this country. Because the people get to decide. You get to be decided for, right? It's already in paper what is supposed to happen to you upon your death. But there are people who will come and interfere and ensure that there is a suppression of information, including your name. Including your name. That pains me extremely deeply. It does really pain me. It honestly does. And I hope that one day we will change that. Because it pains me right now, even as a country is going on with this conversation about human dignity, about being listened to, about representation, inclusivity, about being seen. Nobody has talked about soldiers. Nobody has talked about veterans. How can it be the people who are said to be the anchors of this country are having no one speak up for them during this time? Teachers have people speaking up to them, up for them. Doctors, nurses, you know, journalists, podcasters, bloggers, mothers, fathers, young men, young women. Like, everybody is involved. But nobody is talking about you. Me and you know, it's not because things are perfect. Me and you know, because the limitation of information has worked so well that you are invincible, you are unseen, you are basically invincible. Yeah, but I don't know. To whose interest is that? How does that benefit the country? How does that benefit soldiers? So who does it benefit? What does it benefit? I know you're smart enough to figure this out. So honoring and memorializing fallen military veterans. Kuna kitu mimi nimeona. Education, training, and skills development. I think the biggest majority of attrition from the military has happened because of Operation Linda Inchi and AMISOM, blah, 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 Artemis, right? And so you have very young men who need to actually go back to school and learn skills that are transferable, because majority, if not all, of these young men who have to leave out of, let me not get into it, but who have to leave actually don't have transferable skills. They don't. That's why the education, right? Because we're in this country, education is the key to success, right? But we are also talking about training. We are talking about skills development that can be either provided from scratch or upgraded. Doesn't it sound like those things are so straightforward, so simple? Well, guess what? They're not happening. Ooh, the next one is facilitation or advice on employment placement. I find this to be so funny because the only people who have been facilitated employment, number one, are men. Number two, are high-ranking officers. That's it. That's it. And of course, we are not saying that this has come with this act. That is how it has always been, right? And so when even somebody says, oh, the generals will speak and intervene. If there was something wrong, they would say something. How do you bite the hand that is feeding you? They choose to be good boys to get positions, public service positions, parastatals, I don't know, managing director. Those people will never speak up for you. You need to forget about them. They don't care. They don't care. And they just want to move from one appointment to the next. Kikula pole pole kiwa amenyamaza. So forget about them. Understand that they will not help you. They will not rescue you. They do not care about you. So facilitation or advice on employment placement, and facilitation or advice on business opportunities. There are a lot of veterans who can speak to this, right? And how that has worked out. I've witnessed some of these outcomes and the processes, and I really want veterans, when they are ready, to speak up on that. Okay? So the Act further says, yes, sir. The foregoing provisions thus impose an obligation upon the government through the government departments where necessary, and the ministers/cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries. Wait, you guys are thinking, why am I bringing this up as if, I'm like, oh, are you not worried about what's happening in the country? And I'm like, no, I'm not worried. I'm not worried because we have a constitution. And what is happening right now is actually a beautiful thing that is going to usher us into a place where veterans need to know how to be active citizens in their own interests, because nobody ahead of them or besides them will advocate better for them than they themselves. So you need to know what a law-abiding citizen does in order to realize what is actually promised to them as a right in the Constitution. So what if the Minister for Defense has gone? There'll be another. There'll definitely be another. So do you understand what he or she needs to be doing for you as a veteran? You need to know. Okay? So the foregoing provisions thus impose an obligation upon the government through the government departments where necessary, and the ministers / cabinet secretaries and principal secretaries. How bad wow. Okay. Additionally, Section 7 of the Act provides for specific functions to be undertaken by the Defense Council as follows. I told you this thing needs to leave the Defense Council. I wrote a whole article about it. Find the link in the description box. Because first of all, I don't think veterans have anything to do with like the Defense Council, which in terms of security of the country. We just want to live our lives, man. We just want to like transition, reintegrate, live the soft life. We don't want to be bothered by all these things you guys are bothered about, right? We've paid our dues. We want to just have our soft girl era, soft boy era, and you guys keep coming in between our eras. Anyway, I continue. I mean, if you know me, you know I am quite unserious. Okay? So, additionally, Section 7 of the Act provides for specific functions to be undertaken by the Defense Council as follows. The Defense Council shall, let me tell you, I want to make it so clear why these things are important. The Defense Council shall. I mean, the guy from Eldoret has already expounded on the word shall. So I shall not overkill it. You get it, right? The Defense Council shall, not may, or may choose not to, or might. The Defense Council shall. So what you need to ask yourself with what I'm about to say is whether for the last 2 years, the Defense Council has, okay? A, develop a policy on military veterans. B, consider proposals by the Cabinet Secretary, the Chief of Defense Forces, or Director regarding the policy on military veterans, funding and budgeting in connection with military veterans affairs. Do you know there are people getting paid right now on the dime of military veterans, but they're doing nothing for military veterans? Let that bug you. C, commission research or studies on any issue affecting military veterans. Who can I say psychological war wounds and not appear like I am speaking Greek. D, promote the implementation of programs relating to military veterans affairs under this Act. E, take such steps as may be necessary for the achievement of the objectives of this Act. Additionally, under Section 8 of the Act, the Director of Military Veterans is charged with the following responsibilities. Do you know who the Director of Military Veterans is? Like, do you know who the Director of Military Veterans is? Me, I know, but do you know? No, in fact, the better question is, does he know? I swear, I am not even kidding. Does he know? Let me read you what his responsibilities are so you can understand my question. Okay? So the Director of Military Veterans is charged with the following responsibilities, namely to A, provide administrative services and facilities to the advisory committee in the performance of its functions. B, investigate any submission, inquiry, or complaint relating to benefits of military veterans and military veterans' dependents. C, prepare a report on the findings of an investigations under paragraph B, which is investigate any submission. Yeah, you get me, and share the report together with recommendations thereon with the military veteran, the military veteran's dependent, cabinet secretary, chief of defense forces, or advisory committee as may be appropriate. So now you have to ask yourself, has General Tumbo done any of this? And you can imagine it's like supposed to be a risk for me to say his name because you're not supposed to. Yeah, it's supposed to not be spoken of, not to be said. And I'm saying this only because I remember there was a time, there was a committee that was formed that was working towards a Military Veterans Act, and somebody disclosed who the members were. And they very quickly called everybody and they were like, forget about it, delete that. Because one of the people who were actually in that committee called him and threatened him. So this is a public uh, appointment. This is a public job. It has nothing to do with active duty nonsense. It has nothing to do with the Official Secrets Act, any of the provisions. It's just take my name out of your mouth. Because I just want to do this work that is meant to be bigger than me, and I don't want to have to be accountable to any of you. That's what for me it says. What does it say to you? What does it say to you? And that's why I was saying, majority of veterans don't even know who the director of military veterans is. Yeah. And you should know. You should know so that you're able to call, you're able to text, you're able to WhatsApp, you're able to write a letter. Okay, let me be honest. That's not a guarantee that he's even going to care that you exist. You know how I know? I've done all those things. And guess what I've gotten in return? No response. No response. Oh, yes. And I must also remind you, everything to do with military veterans is actually inside defense headquarters. Oh my God. Let's continue with his responsibilities. Develop strategies and programs to facilitate the progressive realization of benefits to military veterans and military veterans dependent under this act. F, to make recommendations to the Defense Council regarding military veterans affairs. And G, coordinate the implementation of policies relating to military veterans affairs, report to the Chief of Defense Forces on the implementation of the policies, and make recommendations thereon for consideration by the Defense Council. Let me take a breath because I've just remembered the Director of Military Veterans is actually under the command of the CDF and can be redeployed at any time. Yeah, it keeps getting better and better, actually. H, identify legislative and administrative interventions required for the reduction or elimination of disparities or discrimination regarding the treatment of military veterans and military veterans' dependents. How important is that as a responsibility? And can you tell me, under the circumstances we are in right now, that that can be realized? I will never stop talking about how I was discriminated against when I wanted to get the deaf miss for my child. Like that thing to date makes me cry. I overcame. My daughter has the insurance, but it's really, really painful. It's really painful. I, the approval of the cabinet secretary, with the approval of the cabinet secretary, consult other relevant authorities, persons, organizations, or institutions concerned with military veterans affairs in order to achieve the objects of this act, right? So nobody has said all the answers lie with the military. It's basically talking about even have radical collaborations, Like, do whatever you need to do, talk to whoever you need to talk to, collaborate with whoever you need to collaborate to. Well, J, collect and manage and update data and information for any relevant authority, person, organization, or institution concerned with the military veterans affairs. Okay. K, assist military veterans or military veterans dependents in filing applications for the review to the Pensions Assessment Committee and Pensions Appeal Committee. Let me tell you, if the issue of pensions is not something that is limiting your ability to enjoy this life, you're a hypocrite. You are. Sincerely, you are. Let me tell you. Do you know the pensions in Kenya are one of the lowest in the world? Ah! When you're in active service, you don't care about that. Eh? You should listen to these wazees telling you they get 3,000 as pension. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. L, perform any other functions as may be directed by the Defense Council for the achievement of the objects of this act. Okay. Now, I told you mine was to basically unpack and remind you what your entitlements are, right? As military veterans, as dependents of military veterans. I wanted to remind you what is there for you. And in my own special way, I have pointed out to you the problems that are there. I've pointed out to you the vulnerabilities that are there. Okay? So, nada, zero, niente, itube. What is another word for zero in your language? Whatever the word, nothing about the Military Veterans Act has been operationalized. Niente. So despite the foregoing, the Kenyan government has failed and deliberately neglected. And this is deliberate. Usikae hapo useme, oh, labda ni makosa. Makosa gani? They don't care. Has failed and deliberately neglected and abdicated. Kabisa. And that's why I said, does the director of the Military Veterans Council actually know he's the director? Abdication. Abdication of roles. Okay. In the implementation and giving effect to the provisions of the Military Veterans Act. Okay. So if you think this is me saying because this is personal, you know, people like to say that we anaongea hivyo tu juu sijui, and then they add some nonsensical gibberish that is sexist, misogynistic, it's an insult. People always do that. It's demeaning, right? Like it's an easier thing to do than actually just agreeing with a fact. But just so that we are clear, this is not me talking, right? The legal foundations for what I'm talking about are in Article 2, in brackets 1, where it actually says the Constitution is supreme. You guys, the Constitution is supreme, right? Okay. Article 2 in brackets 5, Article 3, Article 10, 12, 21. I mean, nowadays, children have a book they can read to understand the Constitution. Adults have always had access to the Constitution. You're out of the military now. So it's not that if you want to go and read something, you need to go to the CEO's office and do what? All this information is out here. You can go buy the Constitution. You can go to these legal NGOs, get it for free. You can get on the internet, you can use your device, you can use your phone, you can use your desktop, you can use your laptop, like you can use your tablet. Access to information is there. So read these things for yourself. Article 22 in brackets 1, and which is tied to Article 258 stroke 1. Article 27, which basically talks about protection without discrimination. Okay? Protection without discrimination. And 28, which is the right to dignity. Like the Constitution has enshrined in it your right to dignity. Articles 30, 35, 40, and 43, 46, 47, 54, 55, 56, 57. This is not me. This is what is there. This is what is there for you to maneuver people's egos. Article 73 of the Constitution provides for the responsibilities of leadership as follows. Authority assigned to a state officer, okay? It is a public trust to be exercised in a manner that, one, is consistent with purpose and objects of this Constitution, demonstrates respect for the people, brings honor to the nation and the dignity to the office, and promotes public confidence in the integrity of that office, right? And B, vests the state officer the responsibility to serve the people rather than the power to rule them. Wow! Mind blown. I'm not the one who is saying. It actually says the state officer has the responsibility to serve people rather than power to rule them. It's not me. It's what it says. So, you who is charged with that responsibility, are you demonstrating respect for veterans? Is what you're doing bringing honor to this nation by continuously abdicating your role, by neglecting veterans? Is it bringing dignity to this nation, to your office? Is it promoting our confidence in this government? Is it promoting the integrity of that office? Yeah. 118, 174, 201, 232. And the very last one I found to be so interesting is the Fair Administrative Actions Act. The Fair Administrative Actions Act. I'm telling you, there's nothing that is not in the Constitution. And you know, when they don't want you to know something, you know where they put it. That's where it is. And that's why I flipped the pages. And there it is. And let me tell you, it's so weird, you know. Oh, what is a psychologist doing talking about the Constitution? This is where the work has taken me, right? This is where the work has taken me. This is what is actually necessary. You know, it doesn't take away from my ability to actually build on the human spirit using psychotherapeutic approaches, but building on the human spirit through advocacy and building on literacy is also my job. I take that up because it's what is really going to make a difference, not only for myself, but for everybody else, right? So the Fair Administrative Actions Act, and of course, the Military Veterans Act. Please read it. So where do we go from here? What is the way forward? Because we as veterans, the word is not even being shortchanged. Because you know, to be shortchanged, you have to be acknowledged as being in existence. Right? So where do we go from here and what is the way forward? Okay. My article where I talked about the fast closing existential crisis in our military, the link is in the description window of this video. Just have a look at it, right? It happened that I wrote it as also my way of processing General Gola's death, right? And I remember at the time, I was like, for the first time in the history of this nation, you guys just contemplate what I'm about to say. Just contemplate it. The commander in chief is going to attend the funeral of one of his soldiers. Like, it's never happened before. Or he's attended funerals for wives and I don't know what. But you're a soldier, you're dead. Your commander in chief has come to honor you. Hakuna. It happened with General Gola. That's when it happened, right? So I talk a little bit about that there as well, you know. And you know, it's this idea of not of being there during pass out, being there when soldiers are taking the oath, committing them to all these circumstances that will cost them dearly, but not seeing them to the end, you know. I think it's a way of disconnecting from the humanity of soldiers. For me, that's how I've come to understand it. Because if someone does not acknowledge your humanity, then they don't have to think about your existence as a human being and have to interact with that. But if you're just like something abstract out there that is sort of by order, by command, sort of puppeteered, then there's a detachment, there's an emotional, social, spiritual, human distance. So you can make decisions about them and discuss them as if you were in their shoes, you wouldn't want somebody to remember that you're a human being. So read that article as well. Meanwhile, let me get into the way forward, okay? Which of course is based on the inaction and the reluctance of the government to implement the various provisions of the Military Veterans Act 2022, okay? The situation can be remedied through the institution of appropriate proceedings under 1. And listen here, veterans, this is what you can do, right? I know I've had conversations with quite a number of people about this. I know that a few of us had even come together, but not enough of us came together, you know. And again, I understand those failures in the context of good boys want to be rewarded. I understand that. But what I'm telling you is that it's only one good boy who can be rewarded at one time. And it may not be you. It will never be you. So what are you going to do? So number 1, lodging a complaint or an inquiry with the Director of Military Veterans pursuant to Section 8 of the Military Veterans Act. Okay? I read that. You had me read it. That's an option you can take. 2, instituting of court proceedings through judicial review at the High Court to compel the government to implement the Act. Okay? This would entail seeking orders to be able to force the government to act. Okay? Number 3, the institution of court proceedings through a constitutional petition at the High Court to compel the government to act and to further seek for damages and compensation owing to the failure by government to implement the Act. All these things are legal, by the way. You can do them. You can do them. I read for you the benefits. So this delay or this abdication, this neglect, this abandonment since July 4th? What has it costed you? And make the government pay. Okay. 7. Um, yeah. So in it, you have to be able to raise grievances on hardship and suffering experienced by this failure. Sometimes it's a bit re-traumatizing, but I think it is necessary. Okay. Number 4, lodging a petition of complaint to the National Assembly. And so now we are talking about having to get the Committee for Defense and Foreign Affairs involved. Right now, we know that it is headed by Koech. Yes, Koech is the chairperson of that committee because at the end of the day, that's where it has to go. And I think it's very important for you to know that by lodging a petition, complaint to the National Assembly, you can actually have your member of parliament do that for you. Okay? You can actually have your member of parliament do that for you. And I think right now is a good time. What do you think? I'm sorry I'm laughing, but it's hilarious. This whole thing is hilarious. But yeah, this is the opportune time for them to serve the nation. I shouldn't be laughing. Okay. So yes, number 4 is to lodge a petition of complaint to the National Assembly, and this to be done pursuant to Article 118 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010 that provides the following. Every person has a right to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority. Is this matter within its authority? Yes. Okay. Including to enact, amend, or repeal any legislation. Oh, mumesikia hiyo repeal. It's an option. It's an option, guys. It's an option. But you know, what do you guys want to do? Right? Do you want to enact, amend, or repeal? Ooh. All right. Number 2, Parliament shall make the provision for the procedure for the exercise of this right. And number 5, lodging a petition of complaint to the Senate pursuant to Article 119 of the Constitution of Kenya. So if you know anything about this whole entire process, the whole reason why the Senate was such a viable option was because we want military veterans to have benefits of the Military Veterans Act available to them where they are in this country. Because that's where the government got all of you from the different counties you come from. So we want the same counties to be able to be of service to you where you are. This maneno of centralizing things in Nairobi, honestly, I'm not for it. And I think it's a very discriminatory approach to things that people have to come to Nairobi. I don't know for what. Come on, guys. We can do better. We should do better, and we shall do better. But it's all you guys to make it happen. Okay. So I want to talk about the final item, and that is the Social Health Insurance Act 2023. Like I was saying, a lot has been 23, and we are all aware of the ruling that was made. Was it on Friday or Thursday? About that like 14-day sort of moratorium, yeah, I think it is, because we are talking about the government saying we must have this, and the courts are saying, oh, that's unconstitutional, and of course, a lot of concerns have been expressed about that, and a lot of people really arguing for it to completely disappear and to just work on NHIF. But in all this conversation, where do military veterans feature? Okay, so you're seated there, you're thinking, see, me, I have deafness. What do I care? Well, do you know what is in SHIF, really? Do you actually know what is in SHIF? If you did, you would care, which is why I'm talking about it. So you should be aware. You should be aware. All right. So the National Assembly enacted the Social Health Insurance Act 2023. It was assented to in October of 2023. And the act basically is to establish a framework for the management of social health, to provide the establishment of the Social Health Authority, and to give effect to Article 43 in brackets 1 of the Constitution, and for the connected purposes. Okay. So remember, it completely is supposed to replace NHIF, the NHIF Act of 1998. Okay. So let's talk about the objects of what this act includes. Okay. So it says provide a framework for improved health outcomes and financial protection. Excuse me. Provide a framework for improved health outcomes and financial protection in line with the right to health and universal health coverage. Okay. Realign healthcare systems, processes, and programs for responsiveness, reliability, and sustainability of healthcare in Kenya. Enhance the pooling of resources and risks based on the principle of solidarity, equity, and efficiency so as to guarantee access to healthcare services to all. Promote strategic purchasing of healthcare services. Okay. So the Act established the Primary Healthcare Fund under Section 20, thereof whose object shall be to purchase primary healthcare services from health facilities. Okay. So the sources of this money into the fund includes those that are appropriated from the National Assembly, grants, gifts, donations, bequests, money allocated for that purpose from levies, fees administered, and money from other sources. I'm just reading what is there. Okay. The Act additionally introduces the Social Health Insurance Fund under Section 25 thereof. The sources of money for the fund include contribution under the Act. Money is appropriated by the National Assembly for indigent and vulnerable persons, and gifts, grants, innovative financing mechanisms, or donations. Okay. So I know you're still wondering, what does that have to do with me as a veteran? Under Section 26 of the Act, it is mandatory for every Kenyan to register. Mandatory. This is the shall part, not the may part. You remember we talked about that earlier? That's where we are now. Under Section 26 of the Act, it is mandatory for every Kenyan to register as a member of the Social Health Insurance Fund. In regard to a person who, being non-Kenyan and is ordinarily resident in Kenya, the person is also eligible for registration as a member of the social. Why am I talking about that? Because not every veteran has a Kenyan wife. Really, husband, don't call me sexist. I know what I'm talking about. Okay. Under the Act, a child born after the commencement of this Act shall be registered at birth as a member of the Social Health Insurance Fund. Okay. At birth. The registration of persons under the Social Health Insurance Fund is to be conducted continuously at various points in such manner as shall be prescribed by the CS for Health. Nimemeza hiyo. Under the Act, any person who is registerable as a member under the Act, excuse me, is required to provide proof of compliance. This is the part you really need to follow. Proof of compliance with the provisions of the Act on registration and contribution as a precondition of dealing with or accessing public services from the national government, county government, or national or county government entities. Why is this important? Are there private hospitals everywhere in this country where there are veterans? In regard to foreigners, a person who is a non-Kenyan that intends to enter and remain in the territory of Kenya for a period of less than 12 months shall be required to be in possession of a travel health insurance cover as may be designated by the CS. I'm still keeping it together. I'm doing really well. Let's talk about eligibility for contribution, okay? You've already been told, as long as you're a Kenyan, lazima you sign up, okay? So under Section 27 of the Act, the following persons are liable to contribute to the fund, namely every Kenyan household. Did you hear that? Every Kenyan household. A non-Kenyan resident ordinarily residing in Kenya for a period exceeding 12 months, national government, county government, any other employer. Okay, now let's talk about the contributions. The Act provides for contributions in the following terms. In the case of a household whose income is derived from salaried employment by a monthly statutory deduction from the wages or salary by the employer at the rate prescribed under the Act. In the case of a household whose income is not derived from salaried employment, okay, by an annual contribution of a proportion of a household income determined by the means testing instrument in a manner prescribed under this Act. So you are basically, they're talking about your pension. They want your pension. You're not salaried, are you? They want you to pay with your pension, okay? In the case of households in need of financial assistance as determined by the means testing instrument by the government at the rate apportioned from funds appropriated by Parliament and county assemblies for that purpose as prescribed under the Act. Has anybody told you how to go about that? That's why we are talking about this, isn't it? In case of persons under lawful custody, hiyo ni kumaanisha wafungwa, by the government from funds appropriated by Parliament for the purposes at a rate prescribed under the Act. E, in case of a person who is a permanent resident in Kenya, by such person at a rate as may be prescribed under the Act. And F, in the case of another person, by a person himself out of his own funds in a manner prescribed by this Act. Okay? All that is there is provided that the above contributions are to be paid at the time of registration. Are to be paid at the time of registration. Please take note. Okay? It should be noted that a person referred to in subsection 2 in brackets B in brackets above is required to pay their contribution on an annual basis. The Act furthermore makes it mandatory for contribution and failure results to denial of access to health care in government and county facilities, including the imposition of a penalty. Think about that for a minute. Denial of access to health care, my friends. It provides thus: a person shall, again, that word. I told you guys, words have meaning. A person shall only access the healthcare services under this Act where their contributions to the social health insurance fund are up to date and active. Any person who fails to pay any contribution in respect of any period on or before the day of which payment is due shall be liable to a penalty equal to 2% of the amount for contribution for this period, which the contribution remains unpaid, and the total annual contributions. If your pension can pay for that, yeah, for how long? A person shall pay all outstanding contributions and penalties accrued before resuming access to healthcare services provided under this act. Yeah, because your disease will listen to that. Yeah. Under the act, the government shall ensure that premium financing products are provided for non-salaried persons for the payment of the social health insurance. Section 28 of the Act furthermore introduces emergency, chronic, and critical illness funds, whose purpose is to defray the costs of management of chronic illnesses after depletion of the social insurance cover and to cover the costs of emergency treatment. Okay? So, I've read for you what is there. And of course, in my usual style, I've let you know where your concerns should really lie. Okay? But now, let me unpack it further as to the implications of the Social Health Insurance Act on you. Okay? Compulsory registration and acquisition of SHIF, a SHIF number and identifier by every Kenyan. Compulsory individual and household registration and contribution and remittance to SHIF. Timely remittance and payments of SHIF. Every child born after the commencement of the Act must be registered and assigned a SHIF/identifier. Okay. So remember, DEFMIS has taken medical cover, as a scheme. We can say it's a private scheme, isn't it? Okay. So under Section 31 of the Social Health Insurance Act, nothing under the Act is to be construed to preclude any beneficiary from taking private health insurance cover. A person can still take any such other medical cover, but this remains compulsory. A compulsory payment or remittance. So it's not optional like the days of NHIF. Wewe kuwa na hiyo deafness yako, go to this private whatevers, but you're still going to pay for SHIF. And if you don't pay for SHIF, we'll deny you medical care and then we'll penalize you to bring you up to date with your payments. That's basically what this says. So now you're a veteran, akale ka pension kako, we ushalipia deafness. You paid for deafness. You signed everything there. Then now someone is telling you start making parallel payment. Nani atatutetea? Nani like, and this is what I'm telling you, hakuna mtu atawatetea. Itabidi mujitetee. It's really that simple. Someone will say, oh, I don't care. Oh, it's like you have the same pension, guy. Or if you have the same streams of income. Yeah. So, that's what it is, basically. Okay. So, whereas the Social Health Insurance Act manifests noble intentions, it has been argued that the design is problematic and raises various constitutional issues, including uncertainty. Kwanza, that part of you might be denied. I don't know. Anyway. Whereas the Social Health Insurance Act manifests noble intentions. I don't know what's noble about it, but anyway. I said that. Just let me do a third take. Okay? Let me do a third take. I'm gonna be very serious now. Like, serious. Whereas the Social Health Insurance Act manifests noble intentions, it has been argued that the design is problematic and raises various constitutional issues, including uncertainty. As to implementation and the compulsory nature of the fund, regardless of economic status of the person. Similarly, the Act creates confusion in regard to persons who are already covered under private healthcare insurance schemes. Deaf miss. Okay? So it's important for you to know that the Act, like I was saying, it was challenged. Yeah, to remember that. Then, of course, we had the ruling. So let's see what happens in 14 days. Okay. Um, let's see what happens in 14 days. So that is still in the air. But at least now you know the questions that you should be asking. Why, if I paid for deafness, should I pay for SHIF? I'm paying with money from where? Hiyo pesa inatoka wapi? All right. Those are some of the questions that require to be answered. I'm so happy that we have come to the end of this because my nose is really running. And go on and be your bad self. For me, that's what I say. Go on and be your bad self. Playing nice is not going to deliver your soul to heaven. It will guarantee your soul on earth. So go on and be your bad self. I wish you all the best. And I hope that a day will come when veterans will have a face, a platform, a philosophy, and just an overall beautiful life. That's my goal, you know. Peace, comfort, safety, happiness, joy. That's my wish. What's yours? What's yours? Besides wishing you could go back to the way things were when you felt like you were somebody in active service. I don't know. All I can tell you is that you've always been somebody. And when you put on that uniform, it was you who made the uniform great. You've always been great. You'll always be great. Right? So move beyond these limitations that have radicalized your mind and deluded you into thinking that who you are is based on what somebody else has put in your mind or told you you are or you are not. I wish everybody continued healing. I know a lot of veterans are struggling. It breaks my heart. I wish I had a bigger capacity, you know, excuse me. And, you know, that's the whole reason why we went the legislative way to compel the government to actually give these protections to every veteran. So I know the pain that is in the hearts, in the minds, in the souls of the veterans. I know the heart that is in the hearts of widows. I know the pain that is in the children who have lost their parent or parents, right? If I could embrace and just hug all of you and assure you everything is gonna be okay. I would. But I know for a fact nothing is going to magically happen. It's people who are going to make it happen, and the people to make it happen are actually first and foremost the veterans. It's a painful thing to say that the Kawa Kenyans will not speak up for neither soldiers nor veterans, but it's the truth. It's the truth. So thank you so much. Uh, and I hope to see you all soon. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Okay? Bye.